Welcome to Ash and Iron, where we dig through the ashes of history to find the iron truth beneath. The Knights Hospitaller are the only military order to survive from the Crusades to the modern day. They are still here, right now. While the Templars burned and the Teutonic Knights faded into history, the Hospitallers adapted, evolved, and endured for over 900 years. They began as humble monks caring for sick pilgrims. They became elite warriors who held back the Ottoman Empire. They ruled islands as sovereign princes, and today they still exist as a recognized sovereign entity with embassies, passports, and a mission that never died. This is the story of the order that refused to quit. The year is 1048, and Jerusalem is still under Muslim rule. Italian merchants from Amalfi establish a hospitaller near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to care for Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. They dedicate it to St. John the Baptist. The monks who run this hospital are not warriors, they are healers. They take vows of poverty and service, devoting their lives to tending the sick, feeding the hungry, and sheltering the weary. They are the Hospitallers of St. John. For 50 years, they operate quietly, treating pilgrims suffering from disease, exhaustion, and the brutal journey to Jerusalem. Then the First Crusade changes everything. In 1099, Christian armies capture Jerusalem. The Crusader kingdoms need infrastructure, and the Hospitallers provide it. Their hospital expands. Donations pour in from grateful pilgrims and European nobles who see the value in supporting this charitable mission. By 1113, the order is officially recognized by the Pope as the Order of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem. They are monks, healers, not soldiers, not yet. The Crusader kingdoms are surrounded by enemies. Muslim forces constantly probe their borders, raiding villages, ambushing supply lines, threatening the fragile Christian territories. The Templars have already taken up arms to defend pilgrims. The Hospitallers watch, and eventually they make a choice. By the 1130s, the Hospitallers begin militarizing. Monks who once carried bandages now carry swords. They construct castles and fortresses across the Levant. They field armies. But unlike the Templars, who are purely military, the Hospitallers never abandon their original mission. They continue to run hospitals. They still care for the sick. They are both healers and warriors, a dual identity that defines them for centuries. Their most famous fortress is Crc des Chevaliers in Syria, one of the most formidable castles ever built. Perched on a hilltop, surrounded by massive walls, defended by a garrison of knights and soldiers, Crc des Chevaliers is nearly impregnable. The Hospitallers hold it for over a century, repelling siege after siege. Saladin himself looks at Crc des Chevaliers and decides it is not worth the cost of taking it. The Hospitallers earn a reputation as some of the toughest fighters in the Crusades. At the Battle of Arsuf in 1191, Hospitaller Knights charged Saladin's forces alongside Richard the Lionheart, helping secure a crucial Crusader victory. At the Siege of Acre, they fight shoulder to shoulder with the Templars, holding the walls against overwhelming odds. But like all Crusader orders, they also suffer devastating losses. At the Battle of Hattin in 1187, the Hospitallers are nearly annihilated alongside the Templars. Those captured are executed, and yet they rebuild. They always rebuild. By 1291, the Crusades are over. Acre, the last Christian stronghold in the Holy Land, falls to the Mamluks. The Templars retreat to Cyprus, uncertain of their future. The Hospitallers retreat to Cyprus as well, but unlike the Templars, the Hospitallers already have a plan. They need a new home, a new mission, a new enemy. They find R3 in the eastern Mediterranean. In 1309, the Hospitallers launch an invasion of the island of Rhodes. It takes them until 1310, but they capture it. And for the next 2 centuries, Rhodes becomes their sovereign state. The Knights Hospitaller are no longer just a military order, they are a nation. They mint their own coins, they maintain their own navy, they govern their own population, they answer to no king, no emperor, only the Pope, and they use Rhodes as a base to wage naval warfare against the rising Ottoman Empire. The Hospitallers become corsairs, Christian pirates hunting Ottoman shipping lanes, raiding Muslim ports, disrupting trade routes. The Ottomans hate them, the Hospitallers do not care. They build a powerful fleet of galleys, transforming from land-based knights into master sailors. They fortify Rhodes into one of the most heavily defended islands in the Mediterranean. Massive walls, artillery emplacements, deep harbors protected by chains and towers. The Ottomans try to take Rhodes in 1440, they fail. They try again in 1480, they fail again. For over 2 centuries, the Hospitallers hold Rhodes against the most powerful empire in the world. But empires are patient, and the Ottomans never forget. The Knights Hospitaller are no longer just a military order, they are a nation. In 1522, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent decides to end the Hospitallers once and for all. He assembles a massive invasion force estimated at over 100,000 soldiers and a fleet of hundreds of ships. The Hospitallers have roughly 7,000 defenders total, including knights, soldiers, and armed townspeople. The siege lasts 6 months. Wave after wave of Ottoman soldiers assault the walls. Cannons pound the fortifications day and night. Mines are dug beneath the towers. The Hospitallers fight with everything they have. They repair breaches at night. They launch desperate counterattacks. They hold and hold and hold. But eventually the numbers tell. By December 1522, the walls are crumbling, supplies are running out, and reinforcements are not coming. The Grand Master, Philip Villiers Dulis Adam, negotiates an honorable surrender. Suleiman, impressed by their courage, allows the Hospitallers to leave with their weapons, their banners, and their relics. On January 1st, 1523, the Knights Hospitaller sail away from Rhodes. They are defeated, homeless, but not broken. For 7 years, the Hospitallers wander. They seek a new home. They approach various European monarchs offering their services, looking for a base. Finally, in 1530, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V offers them the island of Malta. It is small, it is barren, it is strategically vital. The Hospitallers accept. They become the Knights of Malta, and once again they transform their new home into a fortress. They build the city of Valletta, one of the most fortified cities in Europe. They strengthen the island's defenses. They rebuild their fleet, and they resume their war against the Ottomans. For 35 years, the Hospitallers raid Ottoman shipping, capture Muslim vessels, and harass the Turkish coastline. The Ottomans tolerate it until they do not. In 1565, the Ottomans send another massive invasion force. Estimates suggest around 40,000 Ottoman soldiers and a large fleet against roughly 8,000 defenders, including around 700 Hospitaller Knights. The Great Siege of Malta begins. It is one of the most brutal sieges in history. For 4 months, the Ottomans batter the defenses. They take fort after fort. They slaughter entire garrisons. The Hospitallers fight from the rubble. Grand Master Jean Parisot de Valette, 70 years old, fights on the front lines, rallying his men, refusing to surrender. The Ottomans dig mines. The Hospitallers countermine. The Ottomans build siege towers. The Hospitallers burn them. The Ottomans unleash wave after wave of janissaries. The Hospitallers meet them with swords, pikes, and cannons loaded with chain shot. Casualties are staggering on both sides. The Hospitallers lose thousands, the Ottomans lose tens of thousands. And then, in September, a relief force from Sicily arrives. The Ottomans, exhausted and demoralized, retreat. The siege is over. The Knights Hospitaller have done the impossible. They have stopped the Ottoman Empire. Europe celebrates. The Pope calls it a miracle. Malta becomes legendary, and the Hospitallers cement their reputation as the most stubborn warriors in Christendom. For the next 2 centuries, the Hospitallers rule Malta as a sovereign state. They continue their naval campaigns. They build hospitals and fortifications. They attract knights from across Europe who seek glory, adventure, and a chance to fight Islam. But the world is changing. The age of Crusades is over. The Ottoman threat recedes, and in 1798 a new threat arrives. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon, campaigning in Egypt, needs Malta as a base. He lands with a large force. The Hospitallers, weakened by centuries of declining recruitment and internal politics, offer minimal resistance. Napoleon seizes Malta in a matter of days. The Knights are expelled. For the second time, the Hospitallers lose their home. But once again, they refuse to die. The order scatters. Some Knights flee to Russia, where Tsar Paul I briefly becomes their protector. Others retreat to Italy, France, and other European strongholds. They lose their sovereignty, they lose their military power, but they do not lose their mission. The Hospitallers return to their roots, charity, and healing. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, the Order reorganizes as a humanitarian organization. They run hospitals, ambulance services, and relief operations. During World War I, they operate field hospitals. During World War II, they provide medical aid to refugees and prisoners of war. In 1961, the order is formally recognized by the international community as the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. They issue passports, they maintain diplomatic relations with over 100 countries, they have embassies. They are a sovereign entity without territory, a nation without land, and they still exist right now, today. The Sovereign Military Order of Malta operates hospitals, clinics, and humanitarian missions in over 120 countries. They provide disaster relief, medical care, and support for refugees. They have never stopped serving the sick and the poor. 900 years later, they are still doing what they started in 1048. The Knights Hospitaller outlasted everyone. The Templars burned. The Teutonic Knights faded into history. The Spanish orders merged into obscurity. But the Hospitallers adapted. When they lost Jerusalem, they took Rhodes. When they lost Rhodes, they took Malta. When they lost Malta, they became a humanitarian organization. They have been healers, warriors, pirates, princes, and diplomats. They have fought Muslims, Ottomans, and Napoleon. They have held fortresses, ruled islands, and sailed the Mediterranean as both protectors and predators. And through it all, they never abandoned their mission to serve the sick and defend the faith. From a small hospital in Jerusalem to a sovereign order recognized by the United Nations, the Hospitallers are the ultimate survivors. The Templars may be more famous, the Teutonic Knights may be more feared, but the Hospitallers are still here, still fighting, still healing, still enduring. If an order that survived 900 years, 2 massive sieges, and Napoleon himself is not worth a subscribe, I genuinely do not know what is. Comment below if you want to hear about the Great Siege of Malta in full detail, because that story deserves its own video. Or maybe you want the Teutonic Knights next, the German Crusaders who carved out their own country in the frozen north. Your call.